The man across the table does not introduce himself. He slides a folder toward you and watches your hands. Not your face. Your hands. You are 23 years old. You have been in the military for 4 years, 2 of which were spent in places that do not appear on any official deployment roster. You have a scar on your left forearm from a wire fence in a country you are not allowed to name. You have no close friends. Your mother thinks you work in logistics. And right now, in a beige conference room that smells like recycled air and old carpet, a man in a gray suit who has given you no name and no agency affiliation is watching your hands to see if they tremble. They don't. He closes the folder. Good, he says. That is the last normal conversation you will have for a very long time. Level 1. The candidate. The process takes 11 months. The first 3 are psychological. You sit in rooms and answer questions that seem designed to have no right answer. You talk about your father. You talk about a moment when you watched someone make a decision you disagreed with and you did not intervene. You describe your relationship with rules. A woman with wire-rimmed glasses and a yellow legal pad writes things down and never tells you what she is looking for. She smells faintly of lavender and she does not smile. Not once. Across 40 hours of sessions. You learn later that she was looking for one specific thing. Whether you can detach moral judgment from operational necessity. Whether you can file ethics away somewhere quiet and still function. You pass. The next 4 months are physical but not in the way you expect. Yes, there is cold water and no sleep and long runs with weight on your back in the dark. But that is the warm-up. The real work is learning to move without being seen. You spend 3 weeks doing nothing but walking through populated areas, train stations, markets, university campuses, and being followed by surveillance teams whose job is to clock you. You fail 12 times in the first 2 weeks. By the end of week 3, you vanish from their logs completely. You are not running. You are not hiding. You are simply becoming unremarkable. You learn to walk at the exact speed that no camera lingers on. You learn which colors absorb attention and which ones repel it. You learn that the human eye follows movement, contrast, and faces that make expressions. So you slow down, blend your palette, and go flat. You become a gray man. Not invisible. Just forgettable. The final 4 months are language and cover. Your second language is already functional. They take it to surgical. They give you an identity, not a fake name on a fake passport, but a whole human being. Profession, a history, a city you grew up in that you have never visited, down to the smell of the bakery on the corner of a street you can now describe in perfect detail. You study the way people in that city hold their cigarettes, how they gesture when they argue, what football team they pretend to support even when they don't watch the games. You do not become this person. You wear them. The difference matters more than you know right now. On the final day of the 11 months, the man in the gray suit reappears. Different room. Same folder. Same eyes on your hands. You understand what you're agreeing to, he says. It is not a question. You understand that you are agreeing to disappear. Not from the world, from accountability. There will be no record. No rank structure that anyone outside a sealed room will ever see. No uniform. No chain of command that appears in any document with a letterhead. Just a mission. Contact. A number to call that routes through 4 countries before it reaches anyone. You sign. Your hands do not tremble. Level 2. The technician. Your first operation is in a city in Eastern Europe. You are there for 6 weeks. Your cover is a software consultant on a contract with a mid-sized logistics firm. You have a real desk. You attend real meetings. You submit real reports on cargo routing efficiency that a handler in Brussels actually reads and approves, because the cover has to function or it dies. Your actual job is simpler and more precise. You are building a picture. The target is a man who moves money. Not a warlord, not a terrorist in the cinematic sense. Just a careful, unremarkable accountant who sits at the intersection of 3 different networks that your agency cannot see clearly. He is 47. He has 2 daughters. He collects Soviet-era clocks and keeps them in a glass case in his study. You know this because you have been inside his apartment twice while he was not there, and both times you spend exactly 4 minutes and 30 seconds moving through the rooms, cataloging, touching nothing, leaving nothing. The first time, you almost picked up one of the clocks. just to look at it. It was a brass submarine chronometer from 1961, the kind of piece that belongs in a museum. Your hand got within 6 inches of it before you stepped back and kept moving. You told yourself it was operational discipline. You know now it was also something else, a line you could see and chose not to cross yet. The picture building takes 5 weeks. You map his schedule to within 15 minutes of accuracy. You identify his contact points. A coffee shop, a parking structure, a Saturday morning visit to a barber who opens early and always has the same 3 old men waiting in plastic chairs. You identify the people around him, the ones who know what he does and the ones who don't, and you rank them by proximity to the information you need. On week 6, you are given a new instruction. One of the people in his orbit, a young woman, mid-20s, a university researcher who seems genuinely unaware of who she is working with, has access to his personal communication archive. She doesn't know what she has. She thinks she is helping him with a grant proposal. Your handler wants the archive. The instruction is to get close to her. You sit with this for 4 hours in your apartment above a tram line, listening to the trams go by, the metal shriek of them at the curve 2 blocks east. You eat the same meal you have eaten every night in this city. Boiled potatoes, a piece of cold chicken, a glass of water. Not because you can't afford better. Because you don't want to become a person who notices food. You think about what get close to her means in the vocabulary of this work. You have been trained for it. You know exactly how to do it. And you know exactly what it costs the person on the other end when they find out, if they ever do. You do it anyway. Takes 9 days. She is kind. She has a nervous laugh and she talks too much when she is anxious and she makes very good coffee in a very small kitchen and she tells you about her dissertation on Cold War-era data suppression with a kind of urgent joy that makes her cheeks go red. On day 9, when she is in the shower, you copy the archive to a drive the size of a thumbnail. You leave before she comes back out. You don't look at the clock collection on your way out. But you think about it. Level 3. The specialist. 18 months in, you have run 7 operations across 5 countries. You are good at this. That is the problem. Being good at this means they stop giving you the clean work. The picture building, the surveillance architecture, the careful weeks of quiet observation, that work goes to the newer technicians now. You are moved upstream, closer to the action, closer to the moment where information stops being gathered and starts being used. You are in a city in Southeast Asia when you are given your first direct action assignment. The target is a man who facilitates the movement of people. Not a trafficker in the common understanding. The people he moves are assets, informants, defectors, sometimes just inconveniences that one government wants relocated before another government finds them. He is paid in both directions. He is reliable. He has been reliable for years. And now he is about to sell a list of names to someone who will use those names to end careers, end programs, and in 3 specific cases, end lives. You are there to make sure the list does not change hands. The instruction is, stop the exchange. It does not specify how. You spend 3 days watching the man. He is 51, heavyset, with a scar on his chin and a way of eating that suggests he grew up hungry. He has a routine. He trusts his routine. He goes to the same noodle stall at 11:30 every morning and eats standing up, reading a newspaper that he never finishes, watching the street the way men who have survived a long time in this work always watch streets. Not obviously, but continuously. You stop the exchange on the morning of day 4. You do not use violence. You use a conversation. This is the part they do not show in films. How much of this work is just talking? You sit down next to him at the noodle stall, order the same thing he is eating, and you begin to speak. You know things about him that no one who should not know them knows. You describe his daughter's school. You describe the hotel he uses in Macau. You describe the name of the man he is meeting that afternoon, the amount on the table, and, quietly over the last of your broth, the name of the last person who sold a similar list to a similar buyer. That person died in a car accident in Lisbon 14 months ago. You do not say this was not an accident. You don't have to. The man puts down his newspaper. He looks at you for a long time with the flat, evaluative look of someone running numbers in their head. Then he nods once, very slightly, finishes his noodles, and walks back the way he came. The exchange does not happen. You fly out that evening. In the airport, waiting for your connection, you eat a plate of fried rice from a stall near the gate and you feel, For the first time in months, almost nothing. Not satisfaction. Not discomfort. Just a clean, operational quiet. This should frighten you. It doesn't. Level 4. The ghost. At 3 years in, they change how they talk to you. The man in the gray suit. You have met him 4 times now, always different cities, always the same folder. Stops using words like assignment and operation. He starts using the word situation. He says things like, there is a situation developing. And then he looks at you and waits because by now you are supposed to be able to read the rest of the sentence from the way he is sitting. You always can. A ghost is not a field agent. A field agent runs operations with structure, with handlers, with check-ins and abort protocols and teams of people in buildings somewhere who are watching the data. A ghost runs alone. A ghost is the thing that happens when a situation develops beyond what structure can address. When deniability is not just preferred but absolute. When the agency, any agency, needs something done that cannot be traced back to anything with an address. You are sent to a country that is technically an ally. The situation involves a man inside that ally's intelligence service who has been, for 7 years, providing information to a third party that is not an ally. The information has resulted in 3 deaths, the compromise of 2 long-term programs, and the exposure of a network that took 11 years to build. The man does not know he has been identified. Your instruction is not to extract him, not to surveil him, not to build a case for someone else to use. Your instruction is to make the problem stop. You sit in the apartment they have given you, top floor of a building on a quiet street, the windows facing east so the morning light comes in orange and flat, and you spend 2 days with this instruction. You eat, you sleep, you run 8 kilometers in the dark along a canal, the water black and still, the city asleep around you. You think about what you agreed to 11 months into a process that now feels like it happened to a different person. You think about whether there was a moment when you could have stepped off this particular escalator and what floor that moment was on. You think about the woman in the small kitchen with the nervous laugh. Then you stop thinking about it. The operation takes 4 days. It is quiet. It is, in the technical language your handler will use in the debrief, clean. The man's death is registered as a cardiac event. He was 53. He smoked. He had a history of high blood pressure. The attending physician sees exactly what he is expected to see, because the method you used leaves exactly what it is supposed to leave. At the debrief, the man in the gray suit tells you that 3 people are alive because of what you did. He tells you the name of the network that is now safe. He tells you that the information has been contained. He does not ask you how you are. You don't expect him to. Level 5. The architect. At 5 years, you stop operating in the field. Not because you are burned. Not because you are compromised. Because you have become too valuable to risk on a single operation. What you carry, the knowledge, the methods, the contacts, the institutional memory of 100 decisions made in rooms and airports and noodle stalls, is worth more behind a desk than in a hotel corridor. You are given a team. You never meet most of them. You exist to them as a phone number, a set of instructions delivered through cutouts, a voice on an encrypted line that speaks in the kind of calm, specific sentences that leave no room for questions. You architect the operations. You design the cover structures. You identify the targets. You determine the methods. And then you hand it off, and somewhere in a city you may never visit, a 23-year-old who reminds you of someone sits across from a man who watches their hands. You teach yourself not to think about what happens to the assets. The women in small kitchens. The targets in their routines. The men who believe the car accident was a car accident. You build instead. You build a system of compartmentalization so clean and so deep that even the people inside it cannot see the whole shape. You build contingencies for the contingencies. You build, and you are good at it, and the people above you notice, and they give you more to build. At year 6, you are managing operations in 11 countries simultaneously. At year 7, you authorize something you would not have authorized at year 2. You authorize it at 11:14 in the morning, in a climate-controlled office with good furniture and a view of a river, eating a sandwich you don't taste. You read the brief. You run the calculus. You sign the authorization. You eat another bite of the sandwich. The target is not a man who moves money. He is not a man who moves people. He is a journalist. Careful one. A man who has spent 4 years putting together a story that, if published, will not end programs. It will end careers, yes, but more than that, it will end the permission. The public permission. The social contract, such as it is, that allows people like you to do what you do in the spaces between what the law can reach. You sign it. You tell yourself the number. 3 people who are alive because of what you did in that ally's country. The network that is safe. The list that was never sold. You add to that number now. You have been adding to it for 7 years. It has become a very large number. You finish the sandwich. The river is green and slow outside the window. Level 6. The shadow. At 10 years, you are not sure what title you hold, because the title does not exist in any organizational chart. You are the person that people like the man in the gray suit report to on certain matters, when those matters cannot go through official channels. You attend no meetings. You appear in no photographs. You have 3 identities that function, any of which could sustain a life. You have a face that people forget. You have a voice that carries no accent. You have a way of sitting in a room that makes you look like you are there to fix something administrative. You have authorized 41 direct action operations. You have never spoken to a lawyer. You have a place, you have several places, but there is one you return to, a small house on a coast somewhere gray and cold, where the water is the color of old pewter and the wind comes in hard off the sea. You go there when there is a break in the schedule. You walk. You cook simple food. You sleep better there than anywhere else, which you find interesting because it is the place where you are most completely yourself, and you are not sure you like yourself anymore. On one of these trips, you are sitting on a rock above the tide line at approximately 5 in the morning, watching the light come up gray over the water, and you realize that you have no one to call. Not because your cover has isolated you, you are far past needing a cover, but because the process of becoming what you are required the systematic removal of every person who knew you before. The mother who thinks you work in logistics died 4 years ago. You attended the funeral as a distant family acquaintance, because the man who has your face is not the man she raised, and you did not think it would be kind to pretend otherwise, not at the end. You stood at the back of the room and you felt something that had no name, and then you went back to work. You have no close friends because close friends are a liability you trained yourself out of at year 1. You have no partner because the only people who could understand your life are people in this life, and the people in this life do not form those kinds of attachments. Not successfully. Not for long. What you have is the work. The work is real. The work has weight and consequence and you are very good at it. 3 people alive. A network intact. And a very large number of outcomes that you have to believe bent toward something better than the alternative. You watch the light come up over the water. You cannot remember the last time you had a conversation that was not, at some level, an operation. Level 7. The void. 15 years, something goes wrong. Not operationally. Operationally, nothing has gone wrong in years because you do not make operational errors. What goes wrong is something older and quieter and less tractable. You are authorizing a new operation. Standard brief. Clean architecture. You read through the target file and you get to the section on collateral parameters, the acceptable radius, the acceptable numbers, and you feel something you have not felt in a long time. You feel it wrong. Not wrong like a moral alarm. You are long past the age of moral alarms. Wrong like a structural fault. Like a note played flat in a chord that has been playing correctly for years. You read the collateral parameters again and you cannot make the calculus work. Not because the numbers are unusual. They are not. You have signed worse. It is because you cannot find the person who thinks the numbers are acceptable. You look for him. You look for the version of yourself that sat in the beige conference room at 23 and did not let his hands tremble. The version that made the decision in the gray city, in the noodle stall, across from a frightened man eating his breakfast. The version that signed the journalist's brief on a Tuesday morning and finished a sandwich. He is not there. You are not sure when he left. You are not sure if what is sitting in the chair doing the looking is better or worse than what used to be there. You are only sure that there is a gap now, between the person authorized to sign and the person holding the pen. You sign anyway. This is the worst thing you have ever done. Not the operation. The signing without the person behind it. You do not resign. People in your position do not resign. What you do is a slow, institutional disappearing act that takes 2 years and leaves no ripples. You hand off. You transition. You build one final architecture. A succession, clean and tight, that ensures the work continues without interruption. On your last day, the man in the gray suit, older now, the same folder, the same eyes, sits across from you in the kind of room you started in. Beige, recycled air, old carpet. He does not thank you. You don't expect him to. He says, "The work continues." You say, "Yes." You walk out through a lobby, through a glass door, into a city street in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. It is loud. There are people everywhere. A woman is arguing on a phone. A child is crying near a fountain. A man in a food truck is sliding a styrofoam container across a counter to someone who is already eating before they've paid. Ordinary life doing its ordinary thing. You stand on the pavement for a long time. You have saved lives. You know their names, some of them. You have the number. It is a real number, earned across 15 years in rooms and airports and cities you cannot name on the gray coast where the wind comes in hard off the sea. But you have also become something that cannot stand on an ordinary street and feel ordinary. You have become so completely the instrument that you have worn away the hand that held it. You know how to move through a crowd without being seen. You do not know how to want to be seen. You know how to read a person's vulnerabilities in 12 minutes. You do not know how to sit with someone long enough for them to read yours. The child near the fountain stops crying. His mother picks him up. You watch them. You cannot remember the last time anyone looked at you the way that child looks at his mother. Like you were the fixed point. Like the world was navigable because you were in it. You were 23 once. In a beige room with your hands on a table. The man watched them to see if they would tremble. The tragedy is not that they didn't. The tragedy is that they never learned how.